good morning and happy holidays to everyone, or happy on holiday if you wish. Thank you for stopping by. And if you're coming by when we're not live, be sure to leave a comment anyway. That would be awesome. Anybody have any weird dreams? It's a miracle I didn't. Usually I do. Time for some coffee. Good morning, y'all. I hope you have a Radio Shack Christmas. Let's see. I hope I get a Simon and maybe a chessboard. Oh, it would be really nice to get a battleship game. But then again, wouldn't it be awesome for him? Well, Merry Holidays, everyone. Well, coffee. That's good stuff right there. Sometimes I drink coffee, sometimes I drink tea. This morning, coffee for sure. Crunch, crunch. Hello. Does that sound cool? I can't snap for shit. Ah, yeah, that's good stuff right there. Mm. Oh, yeah. What do I want from Radio Shack this year? Really, I want a new tube TV and a VCR. Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Happy holidays. Got a few gifts under the tree there. That's awesome. Let's see, what did I get this year? So far, I got a countertop oven big enough to cook a turkey. I got a bread machine, which is pretty freaking awesome. What else did I? Oh, I got a new bathrobe. Let's see. Oh, I got an empty house. Thank you, thank you. All tweakers should burn in hell. Yeah. And all potheads should yeah. Okay, what was I saying? Totally. Well, how about if we listen to a little bit of music? Anybody? Anybody? Oh, well, maybe in a little while. It's still a bit early. That'll be good. Vanilla wafers and coffee. Awesome. Excellent. Well, what are y'all doing today? Spending time with family and friends? Doing something for your community? Working? Yep. Got a few places to take care of today. And then back to the holiday. As soon as everybody wakes up, we're going to have some ham and eggs. Which, does anybody have ham dinner on Christmas Eve so they can have ham and eggs the next day? That's what we do. Well, my daughter makes me do it. She loves them Christmas ham and eggs. Good stuff. And don't forget the Christmas split pea soup tomorrow. You gotta do something with all that ham, right? Well, how does it sound, me eating with this microphone on, huh? Can you hear all that? Crazy. Yeah, you tune in this morning to see how the crazy man eats his vanilla wafers with coffee. That's how. Good morning, good morning. So anyway, I'll be doing some upcoming shows, topical shows. I'm going to do some Johnny shows. I'd like to talk about Johnny Whitaker on an episode. So if y'all know who I'm talking about, please formulate some stories or questions or something so we can discuss when we do the Johnny Whitaker episode. Another Johnny is Johnny Carson. I like to do some Johnny Carson stuff because he was the man when I was growing up, the late night man. Johnny Crawford as well, because I mean, come on, who doesn't love the Rifleman, right? Johnny Dangerously, of course, because it's one of my favorite movies. Let's see, other Johnnies. So what, like a Ralph Macchio episode? Because we're gonna do it for Johnny, man. We'll do it for Johnny. Let's do it for Johnny. One of my favorite movies. But you know what? That movie means a lot. But Over the Edge, it's means so much more. I mean, that's our era was Over the Edge. Yeah. The Outsiders, it's great if you were, if you grew up in the 1950s. The same thing with Stand By Me. Same difference. There are only a few really good movies that capture our time period. And Over the Edge is the one that does it for me. So we'll do an Over the Edge episode. Now, just to let you know, I'm going to be going live Friday nights at 5 for a Friday night nonsense and nostalgia show. We're going to have live music, poetry readings, book readings, we can all sit around and snap our fingers. Have discussions about anything to do with the past. If it was 30 years ago or longer, I want to talk about it. So let's discuss. Let's sit and have coffee and we'll talk. We'll have coffee talk. Yeah. So let's see. Well, today I'd like to thank my wife for everything, but most especially recently, just giving me the freedom to go full bore crazy with this stupid idea of mine on YouTube. Blah, 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 blah. All she hears me talk about all day long is this and stream that. And I got to capture this on video and I got to do that, and it's like, whoa, I need a new coffee cup. I need a new shirt. She's awesome. She thinks I'm a kook, but she's awesome. I'd like to thank my wonderful daughter, Natalie, for her awesomeness. Just getting ready to start her second semester of her second year of college, off to university next year. I just am so, she's just awesome. You gloat about your kids, but is it really gloating? I'm just proud as hell. She's doing things that I could never even fathom doing. Sure, I went to college. I did that thing, but I did it in my 30s and 40s. She's banging it out now while she's still young, which means that she's going to have a pretty awesome future. You know, pretty awesome. Pretty awesome stuff. Yeah. Poor as dirt. I got a kid going to university. I love it. And you see the wealth, is the riches that I have amassed here. Woo-hoo. My house always looks like a yard sale. A yard sale in the 80s. Yeah. Totally. And at some point, I would like to go live Sunday mornings for a longer show. And we can actually get into discussing things in depth. I'd like to talk heavy about a lot of the with the gadgets and the electronics and the gizmos and things that we had back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. A lot of that stuff today is called dead media. I'm surrounded by dead media. I'm looking at Betamax, VHS. I got U-matic tapes over here, big giant cassettes for video. I've got audio cassettes, 8 tracks, LPs, 45, 78s. A lot of books, because books were king, and in my book, books are still awesome. I use books every day. Books are still very important to me. I mean, I've got coloring books, comic books, encyclopedias, fiction, nonfiction, history, you name it, I'll read it. I love books. I don't read enough because my brain won't let me. But I still enjoy the hell out of them, which is why most of my books are picture books. You know, Native American art. I love the books. We'll have to look at some at some point. The books with photographs, aerial photographs looking over major metropolitan areas. I like the contrast between then and now, looking at the photographs over Hollywood and Los Angeles and Southern California, and then taking satellite photos and comparing the two. It's just amazing how much things have changed. I thought things had changed a lot when I was a kid in the 70s and early 80s. I thought, my God, California's just going crazy. Freeways popping up everywhere, neighborhoods popping up everywhere. Every time we'd take a drive, we'd see new neighborhoods popping up. Amazing how just in our area, from Corona to Temecula, how that whole valley changed so much. You know, from the triangulation of the 91 and the 15 in Corona to the 91 and the 215, and then triangulating it down to where the 215 and the 15 split in Murietta. That whole area has gone crazy. It had gone nuts in the 90s, but it's unfathomable It is without fathom. It's just unimaginable how things have changed in Murietta, Temecula, Wildomar, Paris, Hemet. Um, it's crazy. It's just crazy. We're going to have to do an episode discussing the changes that have happened to our little areas that we grew up in. So let me hear about the changes that have happened in your area. I know a lot of the people that I knew as a kid in the 90s, most of those people just left and they all went out of state and moved elsewhere. Very few people stayed behind in Lake Elsinore, Temecula, Mary. And for those who did, right on. We'll see you soon. People like Charles and Gary and Eddie and Henry and Gary. I said Gary. John, another guy in the area. Man. I need to see you guys. You know, we need to get together and do a little party jam thing. And if any of you guys are listening out there, you know, thank you. Thank you for believing in our little town and sticking around. Speaking of sticking around our little town, it seems as though lately our little town has left our little town. From what I understand, they've bulldozed, they being, of course, the authorities, have bulldozed a great portion of our original downtown to install a new, city hall. From what I see, the plans don't look, they look too futuristic. They look to the future. And I was kind of hoping that Lake Elsinore would embrace her past. In fact, the city of Lake Elsinore has done everything but embrace its past. The home site of the Machado family is all but bulldozed. If it hasn't been bulldozed yet, it burnt down a few years ago. Like I said, the original downtown has been pretty much leveled. It was decades ago we lost the country club, the original country club, across from the original site of the Paradise Pier. I heard someone a few years ago bought the paddle wheel boat, the Elsinore paddle wheel boat. And I haven't seen hide nor hair of it on Facebook or on any photos. I can't locate it on any satellite photos, so it must be gone. The academy, there is a structure that still remains. It needs a lot of help. If I won the lottery, I would go down and buy that academy building and property today and have it renovated. And you know what? It would make a great few items. I mean, it could be a place for the community. It could be a resort. It could be turned into a huge resort. Just add another wing. For my money, I would develop it into a studio, audio and video studio. I would turn all of the rooms into suites for recording and editing. I would install sound stages and a recording building. I mean, if you just pop up a couple of warehouses and turn them into soundstage, bing, bang, boom, you know, I mean, how awesome would that be for local talent to be able to do their creating right there? I mean, sure, you could do a lot at home nowadays, but how awesome would it be to have a movie and recording studio, TV? I mean, you could do so much. Get all the talent in one area. It'd be phenomenal. Anyway, that's what I would probably do. I would probably turn it into some kind of studio. Yeah, that'd be awesome. But, you know, if you win the lottery, then you got to buy up everything east of the Academy, that whole neighborhood there between the Academy and Cranes. Got to buy up that whole neighborhood there, you know, because that would be awesome to have everybody living in one spot right there on the lake. And those streets are just perfect for block parties. So if I had a Christmas wish that could probably never come true, aside from taking my poor van and driving it around the country, visiting family and friends, I think my biggest dream, well, maybe not one of my biggest, but a huge dream of mine would be to spend a summer in a little house on the lake in Lake Elsinore. You know, 3-4 months living right there on the lake, having block parties every weekend, really sinking my teeth into the past. You know, that would be friggin' awesome. You know, just have a nice little house right there on the lake, and every week or so you could invite new guests to come and hang out and enjoy the past. That would be cool. But anyway, I passed. I can't seem to get away from it. It's where I'm the happiest. So I don't deny myself the past. I embrace it. Warm up there. Well, I think it's about that time. Oh. So, a little shout out to my delivery people. Normally, I get my medication from a local establishment called Green Pearl Organics. Shout out to Green Pearl Organics. You guys are awesome, but you were closed yesterday. So I went to another place for my delivery, I went to the micro buttery and was able to find pretty much the same brand that I normally buy. And that's Coastal Sun is my usual brand. And I got some great stuff from them. Also, I got something new, because new is always good. I got some indica from the micro buttery. And I got some Santa Monica Kush. And that's some great stuff there. So we'll do a little bit of that Santa Monica Kush this morning, because we're gonna push the Kush. We're gonna push the Kush. Anyway, if you're ever out in the Palm Springs area, Desert Hot Springs has a great load of dispensaries, and I enjoy marijuana. So, and I'm not ashamed to admit that I've been smoking marijuana since I was 15, full-time smoker at 15. Mainly because the first 15 years of my life sucked. And I wasn't able to really engage life until marijuana came along, and I was able to take my head out of the equation. And once I did that, I was actually able to make friends and do things and socialize. Before that, I had a one or two friends before I was 15. Granted, I don't have many friends now, but I think that's by choice. But I'll have to say that if it wasn't for marijuana, I probably would not have had the opportunity to socialize as much as I did when I was young. Without marijuana, I never would have been able to settle down and get out of my head enough to let somebody else in and get married, you know. I never would have been able to, you know, I know never say never, but, you know, unless you've lived my life, you know, you can't just say, well, you got to do this and you got to do that, right? Because I would never tell you that. I mean, everybody's got to live their own life, right? For me, marijuana actually helps me live a life. Now just because I've been smoking it full time since I was 15, it doesn't mean I haven't stopped. I've stopped for years at a time, and quality of life was never that great without it. It just never was. And I guess, you know, some people do get addicted to drugs. This has been the one thing that's kept me from all those other addictions. I gave up booze. I gave up cigarettes big time. In fact, I gave up just about everything except for coffee, because, you know, you got to limit your vices. Good morning, anyone that's there. Tap in a comment if you want to say hi, and Merry Christmas. Thanks for stopping by. Anyway, I was just discussing marijuana and how it's affected my life. And how it's given me a life. And yeah, you know, a lot of people can say that it's an addiction, and it may very well be, but I look at it as a choice, because I've chosen to be with marijuana, and I've chosen to be without marijuana. And you know what? I choose to be with it because, not that I feel like I have to explain myself to anyone, but it just, you know, helps me have a better life. And if you're not going to have, or at least try to have, a good life, then what's the point? I mean, what is life anyway? You know, I mean, like the great Jerry Garcia, if my fun doesn't affect anyone else's in a bad or adverse way, I mean, then who are you to tell me what kind of fun I should have, right? I mean, my fun is my fun. I'm not looking to bring you down or to bum you out. But, you know, all I ask is you afford me the same courtesy. You know, I don't come down on you guys for smoking your cigarettes or drinking your booze or, you know, horking your freaking fentanyl down, whatever it is that you want to do. That's fine. As long as it don't affect anyone else, do whatever the hell you want. If you're in one of those businesses where your deal is to take these bad things around and try to get people to ingest them, well, then, yeah, you got something wrong with you, you know. And if these people are going out and seeking out these things because that's what they want and that's how they want to check out, well, just let them fucking go. You know, if they ain't hurting nobody else, let them go. You know, it's their fucking life. They can live it as long as they want, right? I mean, who am I to deny someone their life or their exit strategy from life? You know, life ain't perfect. Life ain't beautiful. Life ain't for everyone. Nobody really gets a choice on beginning their life. The one thing we do have a choice over is how we, you know, sometimes we have a choice on how we go out. You know, some people want to go out, let them go out, you know. I mean, it's sure they'll be missed, but there's a lot of people on this planet. They ain't going to be missed for long, I'll tell you. You know, all you got to do is look around and see the other 150 million people standing around you, and you'll realize that we ain't alone on this planet. Far from it. And if you want to do anything, if you want to regulate anything, why don't you regulate childbirthing? You know, make people get a freaking license, get their head together, take a class, psychologically learn how to raise children and handle it before they start pumping out kids, you know, male or female or other. You want to have kids, you should have your act together first. And then once you got your act together and you've been permitted to have children, one child per, man. Anything else other than, at this point in time, anything more than one child per person, 2 children per couple, anything more than that is abuse of the power of having children. It really is. Because right now we have limited water, limited food, limited air, right? In a lot of places, we got limited space. People are living on the freaking streets in goddamn shoeboxes, all right? Why? Because we got too many people and not enough resources. And not enough brains either. I mean, you know, if you're not going to use knowledge and forethought in anything, then don't do anything, you know? Don't do anything at all. But most of all, you know, men and women alike, keep your legs closed. Keep it in your pants. Nobody needs to, you know, nobody needs to overbreed this freaking planet. We're done. You know, there's enough people on this planet already. You know, do I believe in abortion? No, I don't. It's not right to start a life and then end a life because you wanted to get your rocks off. Literally, you know, whether you ask for it or not, you know, there's just no reason for that. If you're not going to use intelligence in everything that you do, then you may as well just be a moron all the time. You know, I'm not saying that I'm, you know, Mr. Perfect. Far from it. You know, I've done a lot of fucking up in my life. But the one thing that I've done that I see very few other people doing is learning from their mistakes. People will go out and they'll just keep making the same fucking mistakes, mistake after mistake after mistake. Well, that's no bueno. You know, get your act together. Put a little forethought into it. You know, I rarely act on anything without putting a lot of thought into it first. Why? Because I know the effects of doing shit without thinking about them and the consequences further down the road has gotten us into exactly this position we're in now in the world. You know, and we've got a billion people running around right now on this holiday celebrating for all the wrong reasons. And that's sad. This holiday is another one of those things that hurts religion and gives religion a bad name. There's a lot of things out there that give religion a bad name. Evangelists, guys who stick their hand out and go amen. Yeah. But this this holiday has taken a lot of it's taken a lot of punishment from capitalism. In fact, it's pretty much turned every holiday into a capitalist's dream. And that's sad. That is sad. Anyway, if anybody wants to leave a message at some point, either live or afterward, that would be fantastic. Chime in, let me know what you think. Give us a topic to discuss. Send me a personal message here on Facebook, and we'll talk about getting you a gift, because I've got a lot of stuff here to give away. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's time for this first morning bong hit. Yep. 55 years old. Still taking bong hits like a teenager. It's all good. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah. Well, it seems as though everybody's still asleep this morning, because you were probably up late last night putting things under the tree, which I left that to my daughter and left her to wrap the few remaining items and get them under the tree, because she can now. She's an adult, and she's awesome. Yeah. Yep. Y'all should stop by sometime and tell me an interesting Christmas story. That would be neat. I really can't think of any good Christmas stories at the moment. But then again, I've had an unusual existence on this planet. So, comparatively speaking, I'd probably come up with a great Christmas story from my past. My Christmases were pretty. For 1 year, I'm going to say that it was 1974 or 75. We went to Angeles. I'm going to say that it was in Watts because we were spending a lot of time in Watts. My brother and I were attending Manchester Avenue Elementary School in Watts. Me and one other girl were the only two white kids in our class. That was that was an interesting time period. I remember not being accepted by anybody in the school, not the teachers, the students' support staff, the students. I was picked on regularly. I was short. I was whiter than white. My hair was almost white. It was so blonde. And I would get picked on, harassed viciously by the boys, the older boys, kids in my class, and anyone above me or anyone below me who could still whoop my ass. They were all messing with me. And for whatever reason, I don't recall, these two, and I guess it was the fascination that I was so light and had such long, fine white hair. They just adored me. And so these two black, just about every day. And I never had to be afraid that I was going to get bullied. Now, Robert, he had no trouble making friends and fitting in with anybody at any time. For whatever reason or whatever was going on, Robert was able to just jump in and just have a ball with them. My little sister as well, Brandy, she could just make friends with anybody. Of course, I couldn't. I was a wallflower and had trouble just speaking, let alone speaking to strangers or teachers or anything like that. So I was a pretty shy, subdued child. Unless you made me mad, then I just freaked the fuck out. But we were living there in Watts, right off Manchester Avenue, right there in the heart of, just down the street from the park, big park that had a big giant metal rocket, one of those metal rocket jungle gym things, big rocket ship, and had like 3 or 4 stories in it. And the higher up you went, the skinnier it got, and then the bars would. It was a really freaky little machine, but the bottom of it just reeked of urine. So the further up you go, the air would get cleaner. But when you went down, man, you get down toward the bottom of that thing, and boy, gravity, piss travels down, man. Bottom of that thing reeked. And Robert, if you're going to watch this at some point, be sure to leave your comments. But I remember once our parents said, "Okay, come on, we're going to go to McDonald's and get some food and have some lunch." And of course, to a kid back in the 70s, going out to fast food was a big deal, especially when you're, living that poverty-stricken counterculture thing. So we were jazzed. We went out and they took us right down and got us inoculated. They got us vaccines and stuff. because of course we had to go to school, and we were just little hippie kids traveling around. So very rarely did we make the first day of school, or get to school with all of our records, or even have first day clothes. I mean, it was going to school when we were young was just crazy. And while living there, in fact, that day that they got us shots, we got to go over to Watts Towers and hang out and tour the Watts Towers. Another place I'd love to go again today. It's still there. They tried to tear it down, and they just had no luck ripping that thing down. Looks like we're going to go long today, but that's fine. So at the time we're living in Watts, it's Christmas time, and my parents find out about a giveaway, a toy giveaway at the community center, and the surprise was that Ronald McDonald himself was going to be there giving away gifts to the children's presents. So one by one, the kids would walk up on stage, and Ronald McDonald would hand them a gift. And yes, we got to go up and get a gift. I don't remember what the hell it was. Robert might remember what we got. But that was a memorable Christmas, and that was a Christmas that wasn't weirded out, with bad stuff or drug deals or something. Because every year there was always some kind of weird thing going on. I remember one Christmas before that. I'm going to say it was in 1972, 1973, probably 1973. No, I'm going to say 1972. By 73, we had left the Sierra Madre Canyon. So in 1972, we were living in the Sierra Madre Canyon. And my father, who had been out of Vietnam for 3 or 4 years at this point, was working at a veterinary hospital while attending Pasadena City College, and hadn't quite I believe at this point he probably would have started working at the radio station. In what capacity, I couldn't say. Eventually he made it on air, but at Christmas of 72, I'm going to assume that he wasn't on the air yet, but I could be wrong. But we were living in Sierra Madre in what we referred to as the Canyon House. It's no longer there. It's got a big giant house built on its footprint. And it was a little tiny cabin that had been built after World War II by a man who would go out there and use it for hunting. And it was, one of those first places built up high up in Sierra Madre Canyon, right up near the top of the wash where that top little dam is, and above Mary's Market. And at the time, my mom was just staying at home because all three of us were just little squirts. So and I think my father said that he paid like $40 or something a month for this place, and they would just stick the cash in a little envelope and put it in an envelope and stick it, send it to his P.O. box. And they never saw this. They rented the place and they never saw this guy again. And I guess he was old and retired and didn't really care to use the place or, even care much about it. It probably could have withered away and turned to dust, and he wouldn't have known. And so this little place, it was just a one-room cabin that had 2 bedrooms built off the back, and then a porch that had been started but never completed. It had a bathroom added on to the south side of it. And I remember the toilet had an above a tank up high, and you had to pull a chain, and the water would run down the pipe into the toilet with a big whoosh. The kitchen was a little add-on on the front, just a little, it seemed like it started with just one room, and then they added on a kitchen, they added on a bathroom, they added on the 2 bedrooms. While we were there, my father built a wall in the living room and divided it off so that my sister, who was a toddler at this point, would have her own room. So they built this little tiny nursery and put her crib in there. And that same wall, on that same wall, they put a floor-to-ceiling curtain. Okay. And this floor-to-ceiling curtain was just up against the wall, about a foot away from the wall. And I imagine it was used to divide that room before the wall went in. But once the wall went in, they would stack behind this curtain up against this wall kilo bricks of marijuana that they had brought in from Mexico in a motorhome loaned to us by the guy who was bringing the marijuana in. So as a family, we would travel down to Mexico, and we would go to a place, and they would fill the underside tanks with bricks of marijuana. And then as a family, we would come back across the border. Hi, we're just a family visiting. And then we were paid with money, but also marijuana and other consumable party favors. And at the time, that meant anywhere from cocaine to hash oil, marijuana, mushrooms, whatever was the thing that was happening at the time. That's what we were bringing across. Back then, it was apparently it was pretty easy. I mean, at the time I was, we were doing this. I was probably anywhere from 4 years old to 6 or 7 years old, right? And so we had this, at any given time in our house, we would have a kilo ball stacked behind this curtain in our living room. We would have dresser drawers, those old school big giant dresser drawers filled with bricks broken up. My father had this huge triple beam scale. Any of you weirdos out there who want to get weird, well, both my parents are deceased, and I was a child at the time, so whatever. I just know it as my childhood. I don't know it as anything bad done that. What the hell did I know? I was a kid, I enjoyed much of my different. It was hard to fit in. House at all hours there were people there. It was the hippie counterculture thing going on in Sierra Madre at the time, and there were a lot of hippies. I mean, I keep doing this quote thing, but I'm serious. There were hippies up the wazoo everywhere you looked. Our babysitter was this teenage redheaded girl with the wavy red hair, the bandana, the tube top, the bell bottoms, no shoes. I mean, she was straight out of a cheesy sci-fi movie, right? A horror movie, you know, the young cute babysitter. That was her. I think Robert had a huge crush on her. Go ahead and shoot me a message when you get to this part. But yeah, she was phenomenal. I zipped my wiener up into my zipper at one point when she was babysitting, and she had to come and yank my zipper down. It was so embarrassing, but at the same time, she was so cool that I wasn't, you know, traumatized over it. In fact, she used to call it my pencil. Oh, he got his pencil caught in a zipper. It was hilarious. Friggin' hilarious. Of course, it wasn't at the time. But I remember having a Christmas there. That was, I mean, really, really weird. Really. My father used to bring home injured animals, stray animals, animals that people would bring in to have put to sleep, and he would do whatever he had to do at the hospital to fix them up and stitch them and get them in good enough working order to come home. And then he would bring them home, and he would get them the rest of the way, and then find them a place to live. And he did this with cats and dogs and hamsters and birds, and he did this a three-legged rabbit. Somebody's rabbit had gotten injured by a dog or a car or something, and it lost one of its legs. And so he brought home this three-legged rabbit, and it hopped around the house for a while. Big white rabbit with big giant red eyes, and missing a leg. And eventually he found a home for it, but he neglected to tell us that he had found a home for this rabbit. And in full-on old man sense of humor, in his style of insanity, he brought home a ham, and we had ham for Christmas. But what he did was he put 2 giant maraschino cherries on the front of this ham and put it in the oven to bake. And when we asked about where Tripod the rabbit was, he opened up the oven and pointed into the oven at this big pink hunk of meat with 2 red eyes. Now that will traumatize you. All right. Oh, yeah, he had an unusual sense of humor. Very, very unusual. That was a great old man practical joke. Oh yeah. I don't think my mother appreciated his sense of humor as much as I did, nor Robert. I think Robert was probably the butt of a lot of his jokes, and had to take a lot of hits because I had no sense of humor as a young child. I was afraid of my own shadow. I was afraid to communicate with people. I felt like anytime I did communicate, I was setting myself up for rejection or ridicule by friends and family and strangers alike. So I just shut the hell up most of the time. but I don't think Robert ever had that trouble. Anyway, I forgot where I was going. Yeah, at any given moment around that house in Sierra Madre Canyon, there could be, any number of people there from around the neighborhood. There was a couple that lived, in fact, I think it was the redheaded girl who lived across the wash behind our house. There was this little bridge that went across the wash, the main wash in Sierra Madre Canyon. And then across that wash and then up the street was just a cute little cabin. And I believe the little redheaded girl lived there, as well as Jimmy Gemini, one of the local hippies. So we could walk around that place all day long, and still never see as many people as you would just sitting in our living room, because on any day you're going to get most of the people who live down along that wash there stopping by the house for something. There was always some kind of party thing going on, or my parents were recovering from some kind of party thing. My brother had a couple of friends across the street, Gilly Galt and Ransom. I don't know, yes, Gilly Galt and Ransom, Gilly and Galt and Ransom, or Gilly Galt and Ransom. Robert would know. I just remember the names. I don't remember if there were 2 kids or 3 kids. They lived right across from us. Within a few minutes, you could walk down half a street and across some bridges and down a trail along the canyon and be at Mary's Market, where you can grab, a yoo-hoo and grab Mom a pack of cigarettes. And yeah, they would give us, little tiny kids, they would give us cigarettes, and we'd take cigarettes home to our mother. It was a hell of a time period. This is the same place we lived in during the Wounded Knee 2, and we can go into that some other time. But this was a party house. I didn't know a house like that for another 10 years. That was in 73. It wasn't until about 83 that I met a family in Southern California, Lake Elsinore, Rich and Charlotte, and their kids, Tracy and Sam. And then I found, another home, because that place was so much like the place I had grown up in as a little kid. And hanging out at their house was like going home. So thank you guys. That was awesome. Yeah. So back to Sierra Madre Canyon and 1972, Christmas and a ham dinner. I don't remember any gifts that I got that year. I did get a Tonka truck to the face and got 3 stitches in my upper lip, but I wouldn't really consider that a Christmas gift. Our bedroom in Sierra Madre Canyon was really neat. Our father's room was painted a green that's much like the green in this room. I think his green is a little bit lighter. I went with a little bit darker. And he had the same, of course, green in Vietnam. So he kind of brought it home with him and painted his room green. Olive drab. Yay. Good old olive drab. But he took our room and he painted stripes, big giant 1 foot wide floor to ceiling stripes on our wall. And I believe it was just red and white stripes. So it looked like a big, living inside of a big candy mint, one of those candy things. And that was weird. And it was also weird that we had a giant round water bed in our room. So Robert and I slept on this big giant round water bed. Weird as hell. And I mean, it was probably one of those things that came to us in a drug deal, right? Where here, take this water bed and I'll help you set it up if you turn me on to some, whatever. So a lot of our Christmases came about through a drug deal of one or another kind, or our birthday gifts. So my parents or my father would just trade off some of his merchandise for whatever to get us Christmas and birthday gifts, which was, pretty cool. It is what it is. I remember I believe that Christmas I got a Fisher-Price turntable, and it was the kind where you put on the little 45s. And I don't believe it was a traditional 45 player. I think it was one of those where you had to have the special Fisher-Price disc to play on there. And it was more like a music box chiming. I'll have to see if I can find one somewhere. But that was neat because I do have a Fisher-Price turntable from, I believe, the 70s that you can play 45s as well as 78s and 33 and a thirds, I believe. But with that little tiny Fisher-Price turntable, my favorite, probably my only little record at the time, but it was my favorite. No, I had 2 favorites. I had Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head and Puff the Magic Dragon. And those were my 2 favorite things to listen to. And in 1972, I was about 4 years old. Yep. What a cool what a cool little turntable that was. I would sit in the room and on the floor and listen to that over and over and over and over and over again. That was a lot of fun. Also, we received for Christmas for all of us, I think it was Christmas, we got a big swing set outside. My father installed a big giant swing set. And it was the one with the 2 swings and the sawhorse deal and a slide, I believe. Yeah. And that was neat. So we had our own little playground. But back then, the whole neighborhood was our playground. And I would follow Robert and his friends around all over the place, just hoping to get in on something. Whether they were, hiding out in Gilly Galt Ransom's sailboat that was parked in the yard. We'd hang out in there and pretend to be whatever. The tarantulas would come out of the bushes and crawl across the road, big giant tarantulas, as big as an adult hand. And they'd come running across the road. And you could pick up a brick and drop a brick on these things, and the brick would kind of bounce off and they'd just scurry away. I mean, these things were massive. But that canyon, it was still pretty wild back then. Still pretty wild. There were coyotes and bobcats and mountain lions, and there was still bear, and there's still deer, and all kinds of things would come in and out of the hills. One of my father's favorite things to do was to take us hiking. And he would take us in the Jeep. He had a Willys Jeep wagon. And he would take us and Gypsy, the German Shepherd dog that we had. And we would drive out of Sierra Madre Canyon south and then hug the base of the mountain there and drive along the base of the mountain until we got to Bailey Park. And Bailey Park was just a little, I could smell it now. It was a little parking lot surrounded by pine trees and a little tiny little crappy little fence, and it was just the trailhead. And we would go to Bailey Park and we'd park the Jeep, and we would hike the trail up into the canyon. It was a switchback trail that would go up into the mountains, and we would, us kids and whatever dogs we had besides Gypsy, and we would all take off and go hiking up this hill to the cabin, which was it was an old hunting cabin that was still being used in 72 on your way to the waterfalls. And anybody could stop and stay in this cabin as long as it was, vacant. And there was always food and blankets and water. And the deal is that anytime you came there, you had to bring and leave some kind of canned food or, something to help the next person. So we would stop by and we would rest and we would leave some, canned food item or water or an extra blanket or an extra shirt or something. And then we would go on to the waterfalls. And the waterfalls were great because it was everybody, it was a nudist thing. So everybody would just strip down and run into the water. And at the base of the waterfalls was a nice big pond pool. And at the top of the falls, you could climb up and then slide down the rock. And it was really smooth rock that took you down into the pool. And it was a little rough because it was hard, but at the same time, it was pretty smooth because it had been, water had been rushing down this thing for thousands of years. So it was a nice natural slide. And that was a lot of fun. We would climb up there and we'd spend some time up there splashing around the water, sliding around. The old man and, get his perv on and hang out with all of the other naked people. And then we'd hike back down. In fact, one year on our hike up, the dogs had, instead of sticking to the trail, the switchback, they just went straight up. And on their way up, they created an avalanche and started sending down rocks and boulders and shit down on top of us. And before the old man could get us together and corral us together and down, Robert got nailed in the back and received a scar. Brandy and I both were nailed in the forehead, and I still have a scar and an indentation mark in a crease, an actual crease that I can feel in my forehead still. And the old man got beat up in a few places. Of course, the dogs were fine. But we encountered a lot of stuff on those hikes, rattlesnakes in the middle of the trail, and in which the old man would then have to deal with the rattlesnake because of all the dogs and kids and stuff. You can't just, you gotta catch it and kill it. And so he did. But those hikes from Bailey Canyon Park on up to the waterfalls, those were great times. In fact, just a couple of years back, we drove out there to Sierra Madre and walked from Mary's Market up through the canyon and to where the old homestead was. Of course, it's gone now. There are still many houses that are still there. Jimmy Gemini's house is still there. The babysitter's house is still there. Black Steve, his house is still there. Because my father met Black Steve at Pasadena City College, and of course, if you would have asked him, he probably would have referred to himself as Black Steve, because there was Steve, and then there was like Korean Steve, and then there was Black Steve. So there's a lot of Steves around. So he was Black Steve, but he was the coolest of cool dudes. While at the college, he worked on a radio show with my father that I don't have a copy of. But it was an old-time radio show set in World War II, espionage and spies and Nazis. But there were, this neighborhood in 1972, 73, Sierra Madre Canyon was other than places like Laurel and places in San Francisco, Haight-Ashbury, this was one of those counterculture places that really attracted a lot of weirdos. And of course, the fact that my parents were dealing in massive amounts of drugs didn't hurt the fact, and did help to bring a lot of people into that area. But we could, as kids, we could spend, hours and hours and hours every day just running around outside, just having a ball. We didn't need bicycles. We didn't need skateboards. We didn't need telephones. We didn't need radios. We didn't need clothes. We ran around most of the time. I just had on a pair of pants, and that was it. Pair of pants. My sister probably wasn't wearing anything. My brother, pair of pants. That was it. We'd spend all day in just a pair of pants. No shoes, no shirt. It was then that I learned that I didn't necessarily have to brush my hair, for days at a time, which led to a lot of hair issues when I got to school. But it wasn't until 1970. Oh, no, I think it was about then that 72, 70, so 73 is when I started going to school. And from there, the old man was still attending Pasadena City College, working on his Associate of Arts degree. And I went to this weird progressive kindergarten school. And I don't know if I went there because I was weird, or if I went there because my parents were weird, or whether it was just a weird place, and that's what we had the opportunity to do. But it was a weird school. We all sat on one table around one big giant table in one big open room, and there was no real door to this room. It was just a big giant open mouth into another central hub room that was all playground. It was all roads drawn on the floor, and stop signs and lights and businesses and stuff set up on the floor, and you could get on any number of different little kid vehicles, trikes and bicycles and stuff, and drive around this. And you had to, if you were there, you just had to obey the rules of the road, which was kind of weird. And then above that was a mezzanine that went all the way around. That was kind of like a jogging path. And then around the central hub, there were just rooms off in every direction. But it was just us. I remember just the kindergarten class having pretty much the use of this whole area. And every child was required to bring in one piece of fruit with them every day. And every day the teacher would take all of the fruit and chop it up and create a fruit salad, and then divide it up among all of the children. So we all learned to bring something in for sharing. I don't remember learning anything about reading or writing or math in that class. I just remember learning how to share and how to get along, and learning how to obey the rules. And not just for the rules' sake and not for authority, but for us, So that was probably the most fun I had going to school until I was senior high and started hanging out and getting high and making real friends. But in between kindergarten and junior high, school and socializing and adults, that was just hell, and I just hated it. But in 1973, I was still just a little kid, and even though I was really confused as to what the hell everything was all about, and as much as I was, sad and weirded out by the world and life, for the most part, it was okay. I was just a kid, just learning how to be a kid. I couldn't, at 4 and 5 years old, I really couldn't talk to kids my own age. I really couldn't talk to kids at all. I could talk to Robert a little bit, but mainly I was able to talk to my father, and would listen to stories from my father. And then there were always adults around. So I spent a lot of time hanging out with the adults who were usually doing drugs and getting high and goofing around and kind of coming down to my level as a kid, because they were all, getting goofy and silly and stuff on whatever they were doing. But I felt more comfortable at 4 and 5 years old, hanging out with the adults. So Brandy would be playing with her dolls and doing little baby stuff, and Robert would be off with his buddies doing stuff a lot, and I would be hanging out with the adults, having adult conversations. Some of the adults got a little put off by having a kid around when they were snorting coke or smoking weed or doing whatever they were doing, but most of the adults thought it was a novelty that a young child could sit and have a conversation, with an adult on more on their level than on a kid level. I remember once a guy came over for some drugs, and he was sitting on the couch, and I just came in and sat down. And as usual, I would just kind of come in and sit down and hang out and watch what was going on. I came in and plopped myself down and just sat and looked at this guy. And he was doing his thing, and he was, chopping up some coke or, rolling a joint or something. And I was just sitting there kind of looking at him. And he was trying to have a conversation with my dad, but at the same time, he was kind of weirded out because he was doing this transaction and doing these things in front of a kid. And that was something that he wasn't used to. And I totally weirded the guy out. And the more I weirded him out, the more I realized that I was weirding him out. And so I kept it up, and when you know as a kid that you can poke an adult, because the adults poke you, when you know that you can do it to them without having to do anything at all, well, you do it without question. And it was really funny because this guy finally looked at my father and he said, what's is that your kid? What's this, why is he staring at me, man? Don't worry about him. He's just it's just my, but tell him to stop it, man. Your kid's looking at me, man. Tell him to stop looking at me, man. And he got totally weirded out, and I had to leave the room because the guy would not do anything with me sitting there. And so, I took my time to get up and leave the room, making sure that I knew that he knew that I knew that he was weirded out, right? And that was at like 5 years old, probably 4 or 5 years old. And and I still remember that. I remember that incident. My earliest memories are of this house in Sierra Madre Canyon, and that incident right there kind of let me know that I was different. I was way different than a lot of other people, especially kids. I was different than other kids because, other kids wouldn't have weirded this guy out as much as I did. He would have just, shoot, kid, you bother me, and I would have left. But he tried that, and didn't work, and I got him. So at that point, I started to use that to my advantage. My weirdness could affect other people, whether it be other kids or adults. But at some point, I had to start using that in school, dealing with bullies and dealing with bully teachers and bullies. I started using my weirdness as a weapon, or at least at the very least, a defense mechanism. But yeah, the Sierra Madre Canyon life, that was pretty heavy. That's my first great era life experience period. I learned a lot in the Sierra Madre Canyon time. I've got like, tons of stories from climbing down into the wash, exploring, to hiking up into the wash, from going with my father to the Pasadena City College and spending the days there with him, going to the radio station while he's doing his shows, going to the animal hospital, being a kid not in school at the time, I got to go and do a lot of stuff. In fact, even when I was in school, I would get pulled out of school to go with him to do things for whatever reason. You know, maybe I was a kook and they had to keep me out of school a lot because I was getting in trouble. Because I remember a lot of trouble. I remember a lot of anger and anguish and situations with the teachers and the schools that weren't always positive. But we had a lot of life lived in that Sierra Madre Canyon for the couple of years that we were there. That was a heavy time period. You know, right on through into Wounded Knee and the experiences after Wounded Knee that led to us having to leave the area and then just kind of bounce around for like 12 years. I mean, at one point, I think we went to like 3 schools, maybe 4 schools in one school year. We moved around so much and so often. You know, one night we'd go to sleep on the coast in Santa Monica, in Malibu, and go to sleep in the motorhome there and wind up in Lake Havasu, Parker, Arizona, or wind up in Northern California, or in, you know, back east in South Dakota or Nebraska or somewhere, or wind up in Mexico. And we would wind up just about anywhere at any given time for whatever reason. I remember that once a week we would make it back to Pasadena for my father's Friday evening radio show, Nonsense and Nostalgia. It's a big band show, and he would play all kinds of music from the 20s and 30s up into the present, the 70s. So we would make it back at least once a week for his show. Otherwise, we were bouncing all over, you know, this side of the country, up and down the state. In 1975, we started coming to Lake Elsinore, and settled in to Lake Elsinore 75, 76 for a little while. We started settling down in places for brief periods of time, just, you know, long enough to get in a year or a half a year of school. I remember, I think the year that we were in Watts in 75, 74, 75, I think that school year, we also attended Red Cloud Indian School in Niobrara, Nebraska, in the Indian reservation there, because we had gone back and forth during Wounded Knee and then after Wounded Knee for the AIM elections, and so my father could do interviews of the candidates running for the AIM. They're trying to oust Dick Wilson from the reservation, but he just had too much power. Anyway, we can get into Wounded Knee some other time. But yeah, I mean, we bounced around all over the place. And the one thing that was constant was there's no way I could make friends even being in a place for a long period of time, let alone bouncing all over the place. Of course, my brother and sister, they would make friends at, you know, drop of a hat. Anywhere we went, Robert and Brandy could just, you know, rub 2 sticks together and make up a friend. I would literally have to make a friend out of 2 sticks. But, you know, it wasn't a bad thing. I mean, I had to deal with a whole lot less crap than they did. I didn't have to say goodbye to friends a lot because I didn't have any. I didn't have to go out of my way to make new friends every place we went because I was comfortable not having friends. I could sit by myself for hours and entertain myself with a couple of rocks, some string, and some freaking chewing gum, and those 2 sticks. But later in life, when I found out how hard it was to make friends and keep friends, then I kind of longed for those earlier days where it just didn't matter. Of course, I probably have, a couple of handfuls of friends in my life at this point. But I think for me, it's easier that way. I'm pretty much low maintenance, but it seems like everybody else is pretty high maintenance when it comes to friends. I see a lot of stuff being posted on social media, and it seems like there's a lot of hand-holding going on. But I guess that's the way it is. I don't do the whole socializing thing really big, so I wouldn't really know. Yeah. All right, here's one for you. So once again, happy holidays, everyone. I hope you all get your boom boxes and your Walkmans and your Watchmans and your little TVs and radios and clocks and your electronic games and stuff. Let me know who gets a Rubik's Cube. I'm not really good at those newfangled things. What I'd really love is an Atari or a Nintendo, That would be cool. Maybe next year. Those things first come out, they're just awfully expensive. You gotta wait for them to be out a couple of years so the price can come down. Yeah. Well, we'll open up gifts later, and tomorrow we can see what we got. Yeah. Wow. Well, this is an extra long Christmas show here. I had planned to play some music, and then I remembered that I didn't want to plan anything, and that's why I just decided to sit here and talk. Yeah. So if anyone has any Christmas stories they want to talk about, write me a Christmas story in the comments, or stop by tomorrow. Shoot me a private message, and I'll give you a phone number you can call, and you can call me direct, and you can tell me your story right here. I don't do any newfangled electronics. In fact, I've got an old analog microphone here. That's my analog mic. I'm using a digital webcam, but normally I would be blasting through an old Sharp camcorder. because I like the old look. Anyways, orale. And then it goes da 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 da. Happy holidays, everyone. I know you're all spread out all over the place, from Southern California all the way up into Washington, over as far as Indiana and Arkansas and Mississippi, and Ohio, and you guys are everywhere. You know, I think I could probably name just about every state, and there's probably somebody in almost every state there. I know we've got people in as far away as Maine, am I right? Pennsylvania, Florida, Idaho, Montana, Nebraska, South Dakota, New Mexico, Arizona. I mean, you guys are everywhere. Texas. Wow. So happy holidays to everyone, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, whatever you're celebrating, whatever you're not celebrating, whether you're working or not working. Happy holidays from the past. Thank you for stopping by my time machine. This has been, well, weird. That's pretty much it. This has been weird. You know, when you spend as much time as I do talking to yourself, it's not all that weird. Now, sitting here talking to myself for 2 hours on camera, now that feels a little weird, but really normal. And I don't know how well y'all can hear me. I hope you can hear me well. Otherwise, you will have tuned in and thought, what the hell is this guy doing? I can't hear a thing he's saying. So hopefully you will have heard me the last couple hours. Not that I've been saying much. Nothing important. But I'm doing this for me as much as I'm doing this for posterity, because at some point someone's going to get this and understand what I'm doing. It might even be me. Yeah. So to my remaining family, happy holidays, Robert and his family, and Michelle and all y'all, and all the kids and grandkids and his issue. Happy holidays. Happy holidays to Brandy and Chris and all of them guys. Happy holidays to everyone on my friends list. Y'all know who you are. Thanks for supporting my madness. Happy holidays, or unholiday, if you will, to everyone else who's stopped by to say hello. Even if you're just stopping by later to see what the hell this is all about, hang out. Drop me a message. I hate to pander, but this is only going to work if you guys subscribe and like and share and post comments and that kind of stuff. It's just my mad experiment. So, help out. Let me know what you think. I think we're going to call it a 2-hour show today. So we're going to be signing off soon. And, do remember that I've got a lot of weird vintage retro crap that I would love to pass along to y'all, but you got to participate so that I know that you want it. And I know how to get it to you. So at some point, be sure to shoot me a message and let me know what you think of all of this weirdness. I've had fun because I enjoy talking to myself. So if you've had fun, let me know. If you haven't had fun, let me know, and I'll try to make it more interesting. Well, if you're just hanging out with me to drink some coffee or whatever, thanks for coming by. I appreciate it. I'm going to say good day. And once again, happy holidays. And I will see you next time, which is tomorrow. So tune in, because I will be here, and I hope you will be here. Adios.